Hey guys, I'm Chris.
And I'm Mike.
And welcome back to this week's No Limits, the Thriller Podcast. Coming to you with an extra special guest tonight. Why don't you introduce yourself for our customers?
Yeah, sure. My name is Brandon. Those of you who interact with me on X, you might know me as Saturday Dad from posting all the book reviews and Saturday Dad Reads newsletter on X. Coming at you live here from Pittsburgh this evening. So happy to be here on the Thriller Pod and, talking Steve Berry and the Alexandria link.
Dude, super excited to have you on here. Mike had mentioned that, we had read, what was the first one called?
Templar Legacy.
Templar Legacy, yes. And he was begging me to read these for years.
Yeah.
Finally, he knows that I love Dan Brown. I love like that style of thriller, but I hadn't really had time to dig into those, being so immersed in this military, espionage spy thing. But finally we did it and loved it. And then he's like, this guy on Twitter says, if you like that one, you got to read Alexandria Link. So we're glad to have you here. We're glad to talk about it. I don't know, Mike, you said hopefully he's our hype man. I love this book. Did you not love this book?
Okay, no, I'm glad. I did. I was hoping to like it more than the first. Okay. I mean, we're going to unpack it.
That's tough.
It's a tough thing to do. I don't know. I don't know if it tops the Templar Legacy, so I still love it. I love Steve Berry. Yes, I was the one pushing us in that direction. I had taken some time off from Steve Berry for a little while, and then when I finally got back into him, it was just so cool that we did years of Brad Thor's books, and he does a lot of the history stuff and those angles, but Steve Berry 10x's it. He goes all in on the historical narrative, the historical research, where Brad dabbles in it, and then he gets to modern day politics a bit quicker. Or he dabbles in it, and then, Scott has so many other things to deal with, like pressing, terrorist attacks and everything. You couldn't live in the history. He did that earlier in his career, Brad Thor. But Steve Berry, every single book lives in the history. The plot, the protagonist, the main characters, the villains are all intimately tied to some historical tidbit or nugget that, I just frankly want to know more about. Sure. He did it with Templar Legacy. He does it here with the Library of Alexandria and the biblical scholarship. So I love the history aspect. What Steve Berry's doing, he does at the top of his game, best of the best in the world. It's other things plot related, a bit character and plot related that bogged me down. So I don't want to start negative. We'll get into it. But yeah, I'm glad there's two Pennsylvania hype men over here for me.
Yeah, Brandon, what do you think about it? Give us your hot take.
So personally, I enjoyed it more than the Templar Legacy.
Okay.
And for me, Templar Legacy was great, but I wanted more of the history in Templar Legacy. And I feel like what really in a book like you had mentioned Dan Brown, in Dan Brown's books, when he gets into the nuances of painting or the symbol of something, that really draws me in. And I feel like Steve Berry did that to a greater extent in the Alexandria link than he did with the Templar Legacy. It was there in the Templar Legacy, but this one, it just felt like there was all these different threads that sucked me in as far as the historical side of things. Plus you have the one big thing too is what was huge for me is seeing how Steve Berry takes something that, is lost to time and history in the Library of Alexandria and wanting to see what is this going to look like coming from this guy's mind. So that was a big piece for me too, in wanting to see what is going to be his take on it. And how is he going to reveal that to us? So that was, those sorts of things really just were present in the Alexandria link for me, more so than in the Templar Legacy. And I'm kind of with you there too. There were a couple of things dialogue wise and maybe plot wise that weren't there, but the historical side of things were just really what did it for me in this one.
Yeah. I guess I see that, and it's almost like, well, first of all, it's very interesting that he decided to follow up his first book, which is, quote unquote, exposing the the falsehoods of the New Testament, or Christ, like the foundation of the church, to then, all right, I'm immediately going to go to the Old Testament, and tackle that. One, that's super interesting, but two, you're right in that the first book was way more driven on, like, we didn't know what, the Holy Grail, like what was, like, what the Templars knew. Like, we knew it was like something big, but that was like kind of like the big plot twist, I guess. There were some other ones, but whereas here it was kind of spilled very early on, like what the twist was, or not the big twist at the end that, it was all orchestrated by George Haddad, but that, that there was this, essentially everything about the Old Testament, it was written and it was all fake. And, like, yeah, it kind of like got peeled back more and more as we went along, but that wasn't what was driving our suspense. And does that make sense? Am I correct in saying that?
Yeah,
I think so.
I'm definitely with you there.
I do think, and I agree completely, Brandon. I think the history in this book was, the
ratcheted up,
the best you could possibly do. It was ratcheted up, and the fact that it spanned a wider timeline, like you said, Chris. The Templar legacy was, there's a hidden secret which leads you to hidden treasure. Someone wants to get rich. It's a treasure hunt, and it's based on something the Templars did in this particular time period. This book, the burning of the library, had consequences felt for thousands of years, 2,000 plus years later, to now. So I think the fact that a historical event that, one, is a mystery, a true mystery. No one agrees what happened to it. Nobody knows what happened to it. That you could explore, but then you can also explore the fallout of that and what they knew, and over centuries, how it impacted the rise of Judaism in ancient days, and then the rise of Christianity, and then more recently, Islam. And then to really link that to what Saudi Arabia and Israel are doing, that modern day geopolitical posturing, I thought you just, with the history stuff, spanned a much wider time period that had a lot more implications, and definitely relate to early 2000s when this book came out. I'm sure something with Gaza was going off. I'm sure a whole lot of, Israeli issues just like today are going on. Not as big as the war now, but I mean, it's a hot button issue. And he was able to tie that back to so many different time periods in history. And then it was really neat. I like when in this historical faction, as Brad Thor calls it, you do get to blur the lines a little bit. And so I was wondering about these letters between St. Jerome and Augustine.
Sure.
Like, how do you think that's even related to the Library of Alexandria? But he completely ties that together, however many centuries later. And it's fun to read their words. And I'm thinking, is this fake? Is it real? And thankfully he tells us at the end, that was all his invention. And so I love when they take that creative license and it naturally ties in so well to the plot. So history being tied in, I thought was fantastically done. That's the big winner of this book.
Yeah, the whole time I'm reading this and I'm like, how is he going to prove this? Like, because he's rolling out all of these different things, and it's making you think the whole time, okay, what if, just what if? And you keep thinking, and then you get to that section where you're reading this exchange between St. Augustine and St. Jerome, and you're like, wait a minute, like, is this, like, he had me. I'm not gonna lie.
I agree.
He had me, man. And I'm reading, and then I get the author's note at the end, and then you feel like duped, but at that point, like, you're like, it's just wonderful storytelling.
Sure.
At that point,
Agreed.
to be able to weave all of these seemingly different narratives together and all these historical facts together and produce something completely brand new is just, it's fantastic.
And that was a little late in the book. That was definitely past the halfway mark.
Yeah.
And then even being revealed that, the big bad, the villain in the chair, Herman, was that his name? Herman, yeah. He is still needing, he has the letters, right? He's had those letters for a while, but he still needs the original copy of the Old Testament, a pre-Christ 2,000 plus year old document. And that's why he needs the library. And that wasn't revealed until 3/4 through the book. So, like, there was pacing in terms of rolling out the history that kept me bought in, because all those little connections we didn't even know about through the first half of the story. We were bought in because of what's going on with Malone and Pam and Gary. And I think a big winner of this book is Henrik Thorvaldsson. Like, those characters carried the book so well and blended with the history, and I bought it, The problem was I don't know how much I bought into Daly's the bad guy. Green's the good guy. No, Green's the bad guy. Daly's the good guy. And then the vice president's the bad guy. And Danny Daniels comes out as a hero, and he's the good guy. There was just a little on the domestic side of things, right? The internal governmental machinations were just one too many twists and turns, like too roller coaster for me. And I guess it kept the plot moving, and I guess there were reasons it needed to be done, and everything got explained away. There's a little bit of that too, that this Deus Ex Machina of let's just have something or someone come in and explain the last 4 or 5 action sequences, because it didn't make sense that this guy got shot. It didn't make sense that this person survived. It didn't make sense that this person let us live and just walked away. Why'd you kidnap Gary and then just let him go? And there were so many of these plot holes in the action I was thinking about, and then they just explain it away when we get some new character giving us some revelatory information. So a little bit too much of that hand wavy explain it away. I'm sure it checks out, but after that was done 4, 5, 6, 7 times, it was like Green's good, Green's bad, Daly's good, Daly's bad, vice president bad, president good. I was just a little worn out by that, and I wanted more of the history.
I think that piece to your point about the domestic side of things, I was thinking that was almost a way. I feel like he had to get, I feel like Steve Berry had to get Cassiopeia Vitt into the story somehow.
Sure.
And I feel like that was his way of kind of angling her in, coming to Stephanie's rescue, outside the Washington Monument and whatnot. But also too, there's that point of, I think that's a point in different espionage novels that I've read where you're trying to create this era of like, people at the top levels of government don't trust each other, and that becomes a story in and of itself. But if it's not done well, to your point, it can get you bogged down for sure.
Yeah, it felt a little extra.
I felt like every time, like there was a couple scenes with Stephanie where like I was bought in, but most of the time, whenever we cut away from Malone, I was like, no, like I want to go back. And then at the very end, like. I also want to address your comment, Mike, a little bit. But at the very end, when we find out, like George Haddad reveals that in actuality, like my quest was much longer and much harder. Like I had to make a hard quest, but not too easy, not too hard. I was like, I would have loved to have seen your quest.
Agreed.
Exactly.
I wanted George Haddad the whole book. Like we spend so much time with Daly and Green and the president. And it's like, I would have wanted Haddad doing some of these things, or instead of Saber and Malone having to do all these things and go on the quest. It's like, why did George Haddad have to die? No, he's not dead. So it just felt like another one of those twists, which was a grand reveal after we had 4 or 5 other twists, not to mention the Pam twist, right? They dropped that she's an Israeli spy.
Ish, yeah.
I'm thinking, is she knowingly in on this? And then we'd learn it's tied to the watch. So it's really smart writing. It's almost like that Brad Thor complex of he's too smart sometimes for us mere mortals to keep up with how much they want to pack into this plot. It all checked out with the watch and the boyfriend who was the Israeli guy. I get that. But like it felt just like one too many twists, are suspecting Pam, suspecting this person, suspecting that person. Then George Haddad is back. George Haddad set up the whole thing. It was a wild goose chase. And then again, hand wavy, it has to explain that's why the bodies were taken from the site in London, and that's why other things were cleaned up, and that's why we let you walk. And just got hand wavy when all that was told to us instead of being shown to us through the plot.
Yeah, I think back to like the Templar, right, where the big reveal was it was his son, right, or it was her son,
right,
or Stephanie's son, right? But we didn't know that. We were in his mind the entire time, and I guess it wouldn't have worked because George he pretends like he's dead. But is there a way that would have been better if, I don't know, not that I want to like change the writing of this book, but like, did you like it better, I guess, when we were inside someone's mind but we didn't know who they were, or where we had this one where everything was playing out in the background and then we got that full exposition dump at the very end? I don't know. It's two different ways of like playing that style of plot twist.
I usually lean away, I don't know about you guys, from the exposition dump at the end to explain it all. There's a few authors who that's very inherent to their craft and their style. It's something that I generally don't like. I don't feel like Vince often did that. You knew where you stood with a Vince Flynn book, as it played out. And at the end, you knew why everyone did what they did. You didn't need a big explanation, but it wasn't too bad here. I will say that. I'm commenting on it. I don't think it was so heavy-handed to really ruin the book for me at all. It's definitely an amazing book. I just think those are the reasons it's slightly below Templar Legacy. And the other reason, the Templar Legacy, I loved living in that abbey, like you said, with Stephanie Nelson, who happens to be the Grand Master. I really enjoyed that abbey as like a set piece. Hermann and his mansion in is it Vienna? Yeah, it was Austria. Really cool with the butterflies and all that. What did you think about setting of this book and the globetrotting? Because we know that's a big thing about Steve Berry.
Fan of it, especially when it's got you get the nuance to it. Like you said, the butterfly garden in the mansion, the spot, when they're in Portugal and they're trying to find the time of day when the light lines up just right to be able to reveal the spot on the painting. And I personally love when you get all that exposition about the painting and the details of the architecture. Those are the little things along the way that keep me invested in what's going on. And I really get a lot out of that. And I like it when you're going to, places that are off the beaten path, so to speak, like this was, Portugal, you get Middle East, you got Vienna here, but, looking ahead at some of his other, Steve Berry's other books, he's got some places that have got really cool features that to get people to buy into a story and really craft a great setting. So setting was solid for me. I'm a fan of the quest. Is basically what I'm saying. I like it when an author gives me like these little breadcrumbs and like, we got to go here and we do this thing, and then when we've met our objective here, we're going to go over to this place, and just keep giving me those little things. I can see where you're going. We're trying to find the Library of Alexandria. Give me all these little details along the way. Even going back to the very beginning of the novel when they're in the mansion in England, and they're trying to, to find the book and everything like that. That kind of stuff. Give me that all day.
I'm with you. I specifically think the Portugal scenes and Belém and that church, the windows, and I think those little quests are done better than any other author I've read does it. And what Steve Berry does is like makes it last. A lot of books, there's a quest that's so singular, or there's one little puzzle piece or one little clue. I guess Dan Brown as well. Dan Brown and Steve Berry, I think, are the quest guys. And I love reading that as well. That's my favorite part of this story, probably, is all the little historical clues. Maybe that aspect is done better here than the Templar Legacy, because in that one, I remember also having some quibbles about there's all these different mansions across the French countryside, and it wasn't too distinctive one from the other. Here, it's very distinct, each location. Like going into Sinai at the end also is like so different than where we just were in Portugal. And I really do think the setting is one of Steve Berry's strengths, and the way he ties setting to his plot. There's no way the history will play out as it does if it's not intimately tied to these locations. And like Brad Thor, real locations, real research, real artwork, real statues, and you can go see these things yourself. I think that's just so exciting.
I think that's another hallmark of it too, is, when I'm reading this, if I'm actively Googling the location on my phone while I'm reading, like
They did a good job.
To me is you've done a good job of creating a great setting, because I want to see it then.
Exactly.
Yep. No,
I want to go. You can create a travel guide. If a thriller novel could have a travel guide companion, you're doing something right.
Yeah, and I think that's where, some of our other authors that we cover that shine with setting, it's like, they nail it when you're, like you said, intrigued about looking for it, wanting to go there. To me, the Sinai scenes and the construction of this, like, sort of the entrance into the library, like, to me, that was one of the coolest parts of this book. Very harken back to, like in the last book, going down into the tunnels, finding the, with the booby traps. It's very Indiana Jones, and National Treasure-esque. I like that stuff. But yeah, 100% agree with the church, and then like having to line up with a certain time, and I don't know. I love quest books, and I hope that I'm assuming that all the books are like this. So
Yes.
I think Steve Berry has a sucker in me. I'm gonna start buying all the books.
Completely. And Danny Daniels comes on strong, and Chris, Danny Daniels, good president. Really good president. So
it was interesting how he was introduced, because I guess we got this perception from Stephanie, right? And she like, thinks he's an idiot, and then I just assumed that he was in on all of it. Like I just assumed he was part of like the bad cabal, and then to have that big turnaround, and for him to, we didn't even talk about the helicopter scene. There's 2 helicopter scenes in this book.
That's
One
true.
where like you have the Secret Service come in and have a shootout in the middle of, where was that restaurant? In the middle of like West Virginia or
somewhere outside of Camp David.
Yeah, it was like rural Maryland or something
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah.
And then we have the not a helicopter scene. We have the airplane jump where Cotton pushes
Right.
his wife out
Pam.
of the back. But I wanted to start the show with, can you name how many times someone tells Pam to just wait here? Because I tried to go through, I didn't read the book, you listened to the audiobook, but I tried to go through, and it's at least 13 times that a character tells Pam to just wait here. And most of the time
Or to
she
shut her
doesn't-
mouth.
And she doesn't wait. Yeah.
She's told to shut her mouth quite a few times, mostly by Cotton. But I also like how Cotton isn't exactly a saint. He says, like, I screwed around in my past as well. It's not all Pam's fault that she slept with this dude, Gary's father. And that's another interesting tidbit. I mean, sometimes the trope can become these trained spy, assassin, whoever you are, military guys can't have a family. They can't settle down. It's too dangerous. But here their family is torn apart for external reasons. It relates to the job because of the stress that they were under as a couple, but it's also like, it's not really his biological son, but is it? And I think that is unique compared to a lot of other protagonists and their families. The same way the bookseller is unique, his bookshop in Copenhagen, which is rest in peace. Fun scene there in the opening too, with the bombing of the shop and then Pam having to escape. You kind of forget those early scenes, even the Bainbridge stuff which plays a huge role at the end, getting through the tunnels and the secret passages in Sinai. Some of that early stuff gets forgotten because the book gets a little long-winded, but I think the family dynamics in the last book, it was Stephanie Nell's family, her relationship with her son and everything. Here, they're really digging into Cotton's family. And as you know, Brandon, throughout the series, that plays a big role, his relationship with his son, particularly because we go back in time quite a bit in a few books. And now almost, what is it, 20 plus books in the series? Like, there's a lot more story to be told about this family.
I think that was a cool dynamic. And that was, it made me think of like, because I finished Alexandria Link and then picked up Brad Taylor's One Rough Man right after it, and he's got a female companion in that as well, and it really made me think about a different dynamic. And at first I was like, why is this lady along for the ride? Like, she felt like dead weight. But once you find out that she, is involved in the whole thing, I was like, okay, I kind of get it now. But also, that was, my one complaint was like some of the dialogue between Cotton and her. At times I was like, and to your point, stand here, wait here, stop talking, that kind of stuff. I was like, that if I had one major complaint, it would be that, just the dialogue between the two of them. But I like the way things kind of resolved, at the end, and how she became an important part of Cotton, and his success ultimately at the end.
Yeah, for sure. I think they, not like, the cliche thing would be they would get back together, but I think at the very end, they've at least, have come to some sort of treatise or truth in their hatred for each other, and realizing that, they may not love each other, they may not, want to be together anymore, but they definitely love each other, and they need to be there for Gary. Yeah, it's interesting how this book, it's set right post 9/11, written in 2007. but it almost like reads like an old James Bond type novel, or like Indiana Jones, being set in that time period. I guess because we are going back in the past with, just some of the content, but I guess, just the interactions between everybody just seem a lot more, don't quite seem 2007-esque, does that make sense?
Yeah. At the end, he's like, "Do you have communication equipment here?" I'm like, "Okay." Be like, "Do you have cell reception here? Do you get 5G out here in the middle of Sinai?"
Because 2007, that was the first iPod was about to come out. Like,
Yeah,
the first
it almost
iPhone,
is like
the first iPhone. Sorry, no,
it
iPod.
feels like the world of pagers, where nobody can like call anybody on a cell phone, and like you don't have full information about another person. Yeah, it felt a little outdated for sure.
Everybody's still got dial-up access, so
Yep. Yeah, good book. I mean, I didn't like it as much as the Templar Legacy, but from what I know about the rest of the series, it's definitely top half. It's like it's above middle of the pack. So I think this book, as a second book, does enough to say I absolutely want to keep going. Where sometimes, Chris, on the pod, we found second books to be a little hard to get through. I wouldn't call this, even though I'm criticizing it, I wouldn't call this a second book slump at all. No.
So, Brandon, how many of them have you read?
So I've actually only read Templar Legacy and Alexandria Link, but I picked up the Venetian Betrayal last night. So I guess Steve, I think his next book, it's something about the Medicis is about to be released. So my local library had like a huge Steve Barry display last night when I was there, so I picked that one up. Which I'm finding, I started to read it. So this one's kind of got Venetian Betrayal still staying in like that ancient times with Alexander the Great and stuff like that's the tie-in there. But I wanted to see how you guys have read obviously a couple more of them. Is the fire thing at the beginning of each novel, is that like a static thing? Because the first book starts off with a fire, the second one starts off with a fire. The third one starts off, he's in a museum and wakes up surrounded by fire.
I can't remember details well enough to know if it's always a fire, but I will say there's always that Cotton wants to kind of just go back and be the bookseller. Like the bookshop in Copenhagen is like an anchor, and he's almost always pulled out of there. So I maybe haven't recognized the fire thing, or I don't remember well enough. But it's like Robert Langdon, he's swimming those laps in the morning, gets the phone call, and
or it's like Ethan Hunt.
He's always just pulled in.
He gets sent some tape in the middle of nowhere and it explodes or something, right?
And Brad Thor, it's like Gary Lawler calling Scott in, the Carlton Group. Yeah, I feel like that's part of the hero's journey. It's the call to action. It's the shakeup of your comfortable reality. You're not going to go out and be a hero and go on this quest unless you get that call. So. Yeah, that's a good point, Brandon. We're gonna look out for that moving forward.
Yeah,
I forget every book, but it's a trope. It's a trope definitely that he's pulled out of the bookstore. Yeah,
because I was I'm reading the version of the Alexandria Link that I had like the preview of the Venetian Betrayal in the back of the book. So naturally, I started reading it, and I was like, man, this is starting off like eerily similar to the Alexandria Link, because only this time he like is unconscious inside of a museum in Copenhagen, and he wakes up and the museum's on fire and he's got to escape the museum. So it's like, okay, I wonder if this is going to be a thing moving forward.
Yeah, it's a good catch. The other thing, I think I read all the Cotton Malone books at various stages. It's been a while, but I haven't read any of the Cassiopeia books. I know she got her own spin-off series, Steve Barry and MJ Rose, and they wrote a few books together in the Cassiopeia series, which, I mean, she's so awesome. It's kind of a shame she's sidelined here.
Sure.
Like Henrik sending her as Stephanie Nell's bodyguard, if you will, is cool, but it really takes a backseat to how awesome she was in the first book and will be in the future. So I think that's another tiny complaint I have about the book is I know where Cassiopeia will be moving forward, and to not get a lot of her here was kind of disappointing. But Henrik Thorvaldsen made up for that for me. I thought Henrik and Gary particularly were outstanding here. If there was one plot line I wanted to be pulled away from the main action for, it was to see what Henrik Thorvaldsen was doing to one-up Herman. I thought that was phenomenally done.
He's a really well done character, and he is always like one step ahead of anything, the antagonist is doing. And there's that scene when him and Gary are hiding out in the library and they're overhearing that conversation is just so like it's so suspenseful, and you're just waiting on them basically to get busted for being there. You can just tell it's about to happen, and then to go from that into that, the dialogue, because I believe that's how it happens. They overhear the conversation with the vice president, and then it goes right into the letters between St. Jerome and St. Augustine. And so to have those two things build off each other, just that was a fantastic scene in the book for me.
And to go a step further, the president was talking earlier with Stephanie Nell about how they're going to catch Daly or Green to find out who the traitor is, or if there's another traitor, like the vice president. And it's, I think, Henrik's phone call. Because he calls it into, I think, Green, and then nothing gets done with that. So the president knows that Henrik reported this information, but Green doesn't tell the president. Green goes to the vice president and use that as the reason to hit Daly and try to continue going after Stephanie. So I think all three plot lines tied in. The history tied in real well with what Henrik's doing to try to stop Herman. And then that also tied into the president trying to do this quasi-mole hunt to find out who's after Stephanie and who's trying to take him down. And so I think that was a part of the book I really appreciated. If I didn't jive with all three of these competing storylines at all times, I am bought into how they interconnect and how they weave together. It all checks out. So it's not too big a ding.
Speaking of buy-in, do you want to get into the scorecard, Mike?
Let's do it. Brandon, how familiar are you with the scorecard? We can walk you through it as we go.
I think you're going to have to walk me through it, guys.
Yeah.
I'm familiar with your scorecard, but I do not remember everything that is on your scorecard.
Sure.
We're going to give 50 points.
I'm going to insert a column to the left, and we're going to give you a little column here on our sheet. You can't see, but I can see. So it's 50 points. First two are 10 points. That's action/suspense. We've had to add that with doing some of these books like this. The second one is plot. Third one is buy-in. Mike, you do the best of describing like buy-in.
Well, you want to do it as we go? We'll start with
that's
action
fine.
plot for 10 points.
All right. Yeah, let's do that. All right.
What do you say, Brandon? You're our guest. 10 points. What do you give action and plot for the Alexandria link?
Action and plot. I'm going to go. Can I do half points?
Yes.
If the committee approves, yes.
I'm going to go 8.5 there. I like the action was fast paced, from start to finish, but some of the action scenes, like you had mentioned earlier, it's kind of like, where are we going with this? Like, it just kind of felt like we needed to have some sort of a shootout or a helicopter scene here at some point. So I'm going to go 8.5 with that. I do think the opening sequence of Saber and his squad trying to flush Cotton and Pam out of the bookshop, I thought that was particularly well done. But yeah, 8.5 for me.
Fair.
Good score.
Fair.
What about you, Mike?
I agree. It's in that range. I'm going to go slightly lower. I'm not going to give it that extra half, so I'm going to go down to 8. I do think that opening scene might have been my favorite of the action. Kind of gets drowned out. You forget about it later on, but it was a really gripping way to open the book. I think a couple of them seemed inconsequential, like Gary being taken. I thought that was a real interesting showdown of him being kidnapped and then the kidnapper. But then it just kind of falls apart. You get explained like, we let him get away anyway. It's part of the plan. So too many of the action scenes ended up being a little inconsequential. And maybe because I remembered something about that, I didn't buy in as much as I was reading it. So I'm just going to go 8 on action.
Yeah, we normally don't do 0.25s, but I'm like kind of in the middle of you two. But I guess I guess I'll round up to 8.5. I'll be with you, Brandon. It's solid. I think there's some definite plot holes and some things that I wasn't jiving with all throughout, and so because of that, I'm taking a 1.5. So
plot, 10 points for the plot. This could include pacing, a little bit of dialogue, and just the general overview of, did you buy into this idea of the lost scrolls of the Alexandria Library directly were impacting, the Saudis bulldozing this town? and the Israelis claiming the land of Palestine. What do you think about the whole plot? Brandon, 10 points.
Good 9 here. Like I said before, quest, man. Give me all those little breadcrumbs that are leading me to the Library of Alexandria. The only thing I mentioned this earlier that I didn't buy into all the way is, the lack of trust, or the feigned lack of trust at the high levels of government. That part of like all the different levels of subterfuge, and he thinks that I know that I'm going to go do this, and like, what is it called? Game theory or something like that. Trying to anticipate your opponent's next move. Like that part wasn't it for me. But if that part, if you take, because it felt like you have the main Cotton and Pam storyline, obviously, and then you have the Cassiopeia and Stephanie storylines running parallel to each other. If you just gave me Cotton and Pam, I'm still probably going to give it a 9 too.
Sure. Yeah, I think like that's, this is bleeding into the buy-in. Like love the quest, love the idea of the quest. I think it got bogged down with, this sort of third action. I do enjoy the Torkelson and the like sort of the Austria scenes and that kind of stuff. But I'm just the whole domestic side of it. But I understand that it kind of like, now that you're saying that, I didn't realize that Daly was going to become an important character down the road. So like, I guess in retrospect, like some of this domestic stuff is more important than you actually think while you're reading the novel. But yeah, so I think I'm gonna go a little bit lower. I'm gonna go an 8.
Yeah, I want to go lower than an 8 because that's like somebody has to come in and just like fix everything or explain it away. And like Haddad was the librarian at the end, I thought was just a little cheap to like that he masterminded this whole thing so that Pam, Saber, and Cotton would come there together. He expected them to come together and then he was going to work it. All that, yes, is where I'm going to ding it. But I really don't think I can go lower than an 8 because I absolutely bought into all the Old Testament stuff.
Sure.
Like we said, the writings of Jerome and Augustine. Absolutely bought into it. All the little clues to put the puzzle pieces together to find a copy of this Old Testament, and were the translations wrong, and the implications of what could happen if the translations were the correct translation was uncovered, and indeed the Holy Land for Jews and possibly Christians is in Saudi Arabia, where Mecca is. It sounds preposterous, but Steve Berry packaged that up with all the historical details and research.
But all of that is
right.
based on like, I mean, it's not based on truth. It's
that
based
book,
on like
or that
a book.
author.
Like I like, that's the other thing I feel like with Steve Berry, at least what he did from the Knights Templar in this one, is that it seems like he finds that like one text that he reads and he's like, wow, boom, I like that. I'm going to make a story out of it. And then, obviously he does all of his research around it, but that one text is very, very central. And then he obviously takes creative license, like with the notes. But I liked how, and it's kind of like doing the service of like, hey, I read this. I liked it so much. I think you should go read this novel too. Read some of my, my resources. So,
and maybe it's true that he finds that element of maybe it's true. Like
right.
you could read so much stuff and be like, wild conspiracy theories. This is all a fake novel, fiction. I don't like it. Or you could say, what can we learn from this? You don't have to buy it hook, line, and sinker. The whole theory doesn't have to check it. Every fact, I'm not an expert who's going to say it's right or wrong, but I can enjoy the theory. And what if it's true? This is like what if. This is like the Marvel Universe's what if for historical thrillers.
Sure.
It's incredible because every single one of those stories has an element of truth. Like the what if works because there's something about that superhero or character that you could see really playing out this way. And it doesn't in the regular MCU, but let's go tell some wild stories of if it did. Well, all these things that Steve Berry's writing and researching maybe didn't happen in our reality, in our universe historically, exactly as described. But we can really play with this idea of if it's true, what would it have meant for the world today? How would it have impacted, the Middle Eastern politics going back to 1948 in the Nakba? So I absolutely love that part. So I want to ding plot for a couple things. That pulls me up a little. So I'm going to stick with that 8. And it also pulls me up on buy-in. I'm going to be a little more friendly here. I know I've been negative, but I'm going to go 4 out of 5 on buy-in. Buy-in, Brandon, is 5 points. And it's a combination of did you buy into just what the plot is selling, what the motivations are of the characters and how it's progressing? But buy-in could also be as you were reading it, as a reader, where you bought in. Did the book like catch your attention? So I'm making up ground there. This might be a 3 on I don't care about Daly, I don't care about Green. A couple of like too many reveals, too many of these random twists out of the blue that explain things away kind of ticked me off. But I'm making up for that because as I'm reading it, I'm like, oh my God, this is explosive. And I want to know more. So I'm going 4 out of 5 on buy-in.
I think I'd have to go a 4 there as well. In full disclosure, I started and stopped reading this a couple of different times. I grabbed it from the library, months ago. Read like that opening sequence with George Haddad and the Guardian who shows up, and that was as far as I got. And then got it, back in May, and just blew through it. I don't know what it was that caused me to stop reading the first time, but the second time, like I was hooked from start to finish. Like I was rooting for Cotton to make his way, through all the different, pieces of his little quest there. And I was invested in what was happening next. Like I wanted to see, where do we go from Belem? The payoff is going to be, I get to see what the Library of Alexandria looks like coming from, Steve Barry's mind.
Right.
Like that for me is a huge payoff. You have nobody knows what this thing actually looked like, what all was there, but we get to see, how is he going to portray this wonder of the ancient world? So, I'm going to go 4 there too, just because I was invested in the payoff at the end.
And the Guardians were so cool. You mentioned the Guardians. The way that they can invite people, like 1 or 2 every century or whatever it was. I thought the Guardians and how they've kept this alive is the coolest thing ever.
Yeah, that and like the lore that like, naming all of these famous intellectual people throughout history, like they were selected by Guardians.
They were invited.
Ben Franklin, Copernicus, like, essentially all of our ancient, I guess, fathers of various institutions, right? Yeah, I'm with you guys on the 4. I think you guys have said it all. I couldn't stop reading this book. Like I crushed it. I started reading it on my drive home from the beach on Sunday, and then just blew through it. And it's a long book.
It is. Yeah.
I could not put it down. So our next category is villains, bad guys. So who is the bad guy here? I guess it's Green. It's the vice president. It's what's his name? The Austrian guy.
Saber.
Oh, Saber.
Hermann.
Yeah. Hermann. Yeah. What did you guys? I don't know, Brandon, you go first. What did you think of this cabal of various bad guys?
5 points also.
This one I might go a little bit lower on, because I feel like the order of the Golden Fleece and the talons of the eagle, I feel like Steve Barry left a little bit on the table there.
Sure.
I feel like they could have done a lot more with that, and the way that he set it up in the beginning, before you find out that Henrik Thorvaldsen is a part of it, it had the potential to it really feels ominous. And then once you find out that Thorvaldsen's in it and he's like a force for good in it, it kind of feels like it loses a little bit of its teeth. And Dominic Saber kind of just was I don't know, he felt like too stereotypical, like bad guy he just didn't do it for me. He just didn't play the foil to Cotton Malone at that point in time. And like I said before, with Green and the domestic side of things, at first I thought he was the good guy.
I thought he was good. I thought he was going to help Stephanie.
Yeah, I actually really, I was like, oh, I like this character.
Like the scene where they show up at his house in the middle of the night, And
Exactly.
he's helping them hide out there. And I'm thinking the whole time, okay, oh, this guy really isn't that bad. Like he's kind of,
Right.
he's going to work with Stephanie and, but I just feel like there was something that could have been done to make the Order of the Golden Fleece and the Talons of the Eagle just a little bit more. I guess the word would be give it more teeth, like give them more
fierce.
More, yes, that more almost more like I don't know, like that evil shadow organization. But I do like the fact that Thorvaldsen, like, he's infiltrated it basically.
Yeah.
So you've got a man on the inside, working for you too. So I'm gonna go 3 on this one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. What's funny is that I thought every time they referenced the Talons of the Eagles, I kind of laughed because it was like, what? How do you have someone name the Talons of the Eagle and it's like Dominic Saber? Like, I don't know. He was just so squirmy and slimy. And, I guess, he had this special forces background. Obviously, he's super smart. He's able to outsmart all these people. He just didn't fulfill those shoes that I think Steve Barry wanted him to be like. So I'm definitely agreeing there. And I was shocked. Like, it was a jaw-dropping moment when Thorvaldsen said, "Oh, I'm in it," and then
that was
I was
big.
like, "Wait, is he bad?" Like,
yeah, that was big.
But then I think, while it's cool that I liked everything there, I definitely think you're right. But it kind of undercuts the big bad of it all. This the Spectre organization, because essentially they're just rich guys who want to make money, right? They're the only one who's willing to kill anybody is the blue chair.
Blue chair.
But when
that was intriguing.
When we're starting it off, explaining the circle and they put on this chain with the fleece and the different chairs, and there's a blue chair. Like, I was like, oh, sick, this is cool. And then it just kind of fell a little flat for me.
Yeah.
So I'll see you with the 3. I agree with you.
I agree. They're gathering at first. We're hearing referring to them as the blue chair and the other robes. I thought this is like some super secret society of these power brokers and these elites. Then we never really see them interact. There's a few conversations, very short dialogue, like at the table, but it's very clear that he just wants to hijack it for himself. And I would have liked like a cabal of these people, each who play a role, pulling strings, maybe someone challenging his authority, stepping up to the plate, a little more inner dynamics of that group, creating that fear or maybe Henrik Thorvaldsen to also be in a little bit more fear because he's just kind of freewheeling. I get that he brought Gary as like this kind of safeguard, almost this insurance plan of like, you can't touch me because I'm here and everybody's watching and all the other chairs will know what you do. But I thought the stakes could have just been a little higher moving about the mansion and like when they had a face-to-face. Those didn't feel like the highest stakes. And I think, Brandon, that goes to your point of like, it didn't instill that fear in me. And then Dominic Saber, same thing. He was playing as this McClellan, his real name, whatever it was. So the whole time I'm not really too fearful of him because he just seems almost clownish. And he never really showcases his skills in a truly scary way.
He was almost too reliant on, he couldn't make moves independently. He was too reliant on, having to mirror whatever Cotton was doing. And because of that, he couldn't act as an independent contractor.
And none of the other henchmen, his henchmen, he just offs a few of them to tie up loose ends.
That's the only time I guess we're supposed to really feel true, fear for him in the sense that, he sends, like in the one case, right, he sends these 2 people in and then he comes in and shoots them, and then that's to try to get on Malone's good side, sort of like a showcase, oh shit, this guy's crazy. But I don't know, it just, yeah.
He even kills the guy who took Gary towards the beginning,
right?
When they're handing off Gary. I just feel like one too many times we don't see him operate. We just see him clean up. And I feel like if he had to do some intense operations, I might have been more bought into his skill set. I kind of was okay with the idea though of he had the quest, so he knew certain things. Cotton couldn't complete his quest without him, but he couldn't complete it without Cotton in his mind.
Yeah, but the
So,
only
like, they were
reason he has
mutually-
the quest is because of George Haddad let him have it.
That was my problem, which was like that was all just undone by George Haddad wanted to get him here. I thought that was a cop out. I one too many of those cop outs. But yeah, if we're just going with villains, 3 is probably. Yeah, I'll join you guys. 3 is probably it.
Okay.
Good guys, we're gonna make up some ground though. Am I going 5? I might. Cassiopeia was kind of given a back seat. I got to go 4.5.
Dang it for not. Yeah, 'cause she's one of my favorite characters from the last book. I don't know, like, even though like Pam was a little annoying, like I thought that, she was kind of needed because Cotton can be
She's
pretty
the
like
ex-wife.
arrogant, and it was kind of like comic relief. I think getting to see Torkelson more, while he was a big player in the last book, like I think he definitely shined more. Closet, I might just steal him right now from my free space, but Gary Malone, just, and especially I don't know if you listen to audiobooks at all, but the way that Scott Brick, he's the narrator for the series, the way he speaks Gary's dialogue, he speaks him like essentially a younger Cotton.
Yes.
And he nails
Great
it.
Gary.
Like,
He does. It's great.
and
Gary.
he has like the same arrogance, even though like we find out that Gary doesn't have any blood of Cotton. He is Cotton's son because
he is Cotton.
Yeah. So,
and when he attacks the guy, Cotton's even like, he's like, I want to chastise him. Like, I don't want him to be in danger, but he's like, that's my boy.
I'm proud of him. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I'm gonna go 5.
Wow.
I think I'm gonna go 4.5 on this one too. There were, like I mentioned before, just some of the dialogue between Cotton and Pam kind of drove me nuts a little bit. But I did really like the emergence of Henrik Thorvaldsen in this one. Like you said, he was a big player in the first one, but just his role in this one felt so integral to the plot. That I just really like the emergence of his character and being a guy, on the inside of that, of the Order of the Golden Fleece. Like, just, he's like your ultimate trump card. Like, he's the best friend you could have, like, in your back pocket, really.
Right.
Yeah. Agreed. I think those are the 2 winners, Henrik and Gary.
Another ding on bad guys, not to take us back, but you reminded me is the Austrian's daughter, who I feel Steve Barry just got so annoyed in writing this character that he just like decided to write her off book and have Torkelson kidnap her, and she never shows up again.
It was weak.
I completely forgot that she was even in the book.
Yeah, exactly.
It was weak.
But they
just needed her as a bargaining chip.
Yeah. But they're setting it up to be like this in the beginning. Like, they were setting up this dialogue between her and her dad, right? And that,
she might take over.
Or, I thought there was going to be like a Game of Thrones style, there's so many players in this thing.
I thought
like,
so too.
who's backstabbing who, So.
I agree with you. I was thinking the setup was there. They even talked about how letting women into the Order of the Golden Fleece happened, and that allowed her to gain a position where it could one day happen. She was going to make moves. I think that was mishandled. Yeah, you're right. Another winner, a dark horse winner, though, and reason why I like that 4.5 score for good guys. Danny Daniels comes on strong. I was like you said, Chris. I wasn't sure at first. Is he good? Is he bad? Is he a nothing president? He even says, like, Stephanie, you think I'm weak and feeble, and I'm a second term president. You think I, not going to get anything done. I'm a lame duck, and he essentially just drops his dick on the table. Like, he just lays it all out there. He's like, boom. He just puts it all out there, and he lays the smackdown on Attorney General. Is that what Daley was, or Green, who's in charge of Magellan Village now? Stephanie gets
Attorney
fired.
General. Daley was the DNI or deputy DNI.
Gotcha. Yeah. Well, I just think he just puts it all out there, comes on strong, definitely has a presence, and Camp David scene is always enjoyable. I thought that was a nice little scene, the conversations with Stephanie, and he filled in the gaps, and he ultimately knew more than he was letting on. And so I thought Danny Daniels could be a dark horse for one of the better good guys.
Yeah. Good call. All right, we kind of already talked about it, but I guess we got to give it a score. What did you
Setting.
guys think of the setting? This is also out of 5.
Setting's a 5 for me.
Yeah.
You got Belém, you've got the Western Sinai. And like I said, anytime you can take me to one of those off the beaten path places, you give me all the descriptions are there. And if I'm actively looking it up while I'm reading, you've done your job. 5 for setting for me.
Yeah. 100%. You said it all. What about you, Mike? Really? You're not going 5?
I'm gonna go 4.5.
Ooh,
I think there's a ding in
okay.
there. I can't put my finger on what the ding is. It's like the it factor. It's the it factor. It's like there's a 1/10 of a point in a couple of different spots, and it all adds up. For example, like the Bainbridge house. I was so bought into this mansion in the beginning and the statue, and I thought all the little clues and puzzles were going to be there. And a big part of the book is going to be decoding that, that house. And then it tangentially gets mentioned at the end, and he remembers the sequence of letters and helps him do the thing. So I felt like it was good, but it could have been great in how it gets tied in later. I thought Belém was the best part, Portugal. If he did the way he did that, was it a cathedral or a monastery?
Yeah.
That big monastery down there. If I thought a couple of other scenes were as good as that one was, I would easily go 5. But all the other ones had a 1/10 of a point missing. For example, in Vienna with him sitting in the garden with the butterflies, I thought could be a 5 out of 5. But then I didn't know where Henrik and Gary were at the time. It's and then there's that big library or area where he has the books that they steal or the documents that they steal. I couldn't quite picture of it's this mansion with this garden with these other rooms, and I'm sure these chambers where all the Order of the Golden Fleece people are living. It could have been a really cool set action piece, but I couldn't picture it. I didn't think there was enough descriptive language about how you move about this building and how you move about the space. We were just told we're in the gardens at the mansion, and then we're in this room at the mansion, then we're in this room at the mansion. And I only have a quasi sense of what it's like. So I think there's just I can't put my finger exactly on it, but it's not as good as I know Steve Berry can do, and as I've seen some other authors do. Like when Brad Thor's hitting at his finest, I just feel like this does not have that edge. So 4.5, not a big ding.
So we love covers on this podcast. We love them so much. We love to judge the cover by the book. And so this is out of 5 points. And
Here we go.
It's more so, one, is it a good cover? Do you think, but does it ring true to what the essence of the book is? I don't know. We kind of started down this rabbit hole because, well, one, we started this podcast during COVID and we were just trying to figure out what we were doing. We started talking about covers. And in the beginning, we talked about Mitch Rapp. And for some reason, there was always one cover. It was typically the mass market paperback that would just have something completely random, like a guy walking through power lines or a train in the snow when there was no train or snow in the entire novel. The novel took place in the desert, and we would just crap on these novels. And so it kind of became our shtick. And so now we do it. It's part of the scorecard here. So, we definitely heavily weight the A, B, and C covers because those tend to be obviously A is the initial hardcover.
Hardback.
B is typically the second year paperback. And then C is sometimes it's the
a reprint.
So I don't know. Brandon, since you're a guest, you give us your first take on the covers.
So am I giving a score on the cover out of 5 or?
Yeah, eventually, yes.
Eventually, yes. But we
We're
just want to know,
5.
you can vamp,
Yeah,
vamp about these covers as a
and
whole.
Your score heavily has to be relying on really A and B because those are the most well-known covers. But if there's something in the others that calls out to you, that could be a boost or a ding.
Got it. I got to be honest, guys. I'm not a fan of these covers.
Really?
I don't know. B. So cover B is the one I had. And I don't know what it is, but if I'm looking at if I'm looking at B, I can't really tell. It just looks like a cave to me.
Yeah, you're right.
You know, it just looks like a cave. So I think, you know, I'm biased because that's the one that I read.
Sure.
No,
that definitely.
But
we've had that happen before.
I do like the aspect of A, because you can clearly see something is burning there,
Right.
but you also need the context of, okay, I need to know that the Library of Alexandria burned.
Right.
So I feel like, I don't know what my suggestion would be to change it or improve it. But I feel like here's what you can get out of it. If you look at it, you're like, I'm probably going to be reading some sort of adventure novel. If I'm unfamiliar with Steve Barry, I can tell that I'm getting myself into some sort of something dealing with ancient history. It looks, it's got the old look. I can see it looks like, I'm not sure what, in B, what script we've got there, underneath where it says the Alexandria link. But, it's, in terms of overall covers, guys, I'm looking at like a 2.5. They just don't do it for me. They just don't pop.
All right, Mike,
I feel like I'm giving the sense I'm in the minority here.
No, I hear you on all of it. All of your individual points are really valid. I think the one bit of context I'm going to add is that, like Chris was saying, we've seen some covers that totally miss the mark. It would be as if they took the Alexandria link.
He doesn't have our context of
exactly
how many episodes have we done, and so I could see coming in. You're 100% correct. I guess our problem is we've seen
so bad. It was bad stuff, and the biggest reason is we call it judge a cover by the book. It has to be by the book, and I think every single one of these checks off that. We got the scroll. We've got the buildings, which definitely recall of ancient buildings. We got the fire, which the Alexandria Library, the burning book in cover E. So, and then like the mystery hunt of cover H. I think the fact that all of them do tie back to that historical quest mystery and heavily related to an ancient building and texts and scrolls and documents and parchments. I think I have to give it cred for that. I really gotta give it to that. And just from a design perspective, 100% can't agree more. B is absolute trash. I would never want to pick that book up if I saw that in Hudson News or an airport stand. But the opposite is also true of A. That would be one of my first go-tos if I saw it on a stand. So I'm with you in a lot of ways, Brandon. I really am. But I'm also trying to find ways to give it credit. And the last thing I'll say, cover C is so Steve Barry, it's unbelievable. I don't know what the coin is in reference to. I'm assuming Alexander. So if that indeed is Alexander, there weren't many coins in this book, but that becomes a running theme on a lot of stamp, like an imprint on a, what do you call it? On a wax, to seal letters. So there's a little bit of a running theme there. And I think that plus just the design of A, the aesthetics of A, combined with the fact that it's actually showing an old ancient building burning, and the red and the orange is like a theme, and I kind of think that theme and color scheme works. Because of all that, I'm going to bump to 3.5.
3.5. All right.
Yeah, I'm going a bit higher. Chris, the deciding voice in the debate.
Yeah, I'm right in the middle of you guys. I'm a 3. I think you're right. Cover B, worst of the lot. You really have to, maybe it's just because it's so small, and if I had it, I could realize that I guess these are supposed to be hieroglyphs or some sort of, but it just looks like a cave. Like you said, it just looks like a cave. I wouldn't be able to tell that something's burning in there. Like that's supposed to be the library. I do think cover A is probably the best out of all of them. I'm surprised they didn't go with, wasn't there a lighthouse in Alexandria? Like they didn't go with showing like from the lighthouse scheme, like something burning.
That would be
like
cool.
That would just like screaming.
That'd be really cool.
Everything else having the scrolls, E having the scroll burn, kind of plays homage, some of the history that, Barry brings about of like wasn't it one of the manuscripts they saved or one of the records they saved, like, these monks are going to burn like this copy of the Bible for fuel, but then
They think they used the scrolls for the baths,
right,
to fuel the baths, to warm the baths. Yeah.
Can one of you tell me what the symbol is in F? Is that just like some sort of cross?
I think it's that same. Oh, the symbol. I was thinking the coin again. Good question. I've seen that called.
I think it's called an ankh.
What's it called?
I think it's called an ankh, and I think it has something to do with like ancient. Like I've seen it. Like when you see stuff about the pharaohs and stuff like that in ancient Egypt, I've seen it associated with that before.
With Egypt,
yes.
Okay.
The Ankh sometimes refers to as the key of life or the key of the Nile, representative of eternal life in ancient Egypt.
That's an extra half a point right there.
Mike will do that sometimes. Like halfway through it, we'll realize that one of these things it like clicks.
We either missed or misinterpreted. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's a cool touch, although it didn't show up in the book at all. So, but it's related.
No, other than
it's
Alexandria being in Egypt, but we don't go to Egypt. So.
Do you think we should have gone? Well, we go to the Sinai, but do you think we should have gone to like the ruins of Alexandria or like the modern day city? Like he talks in the author's note about this modern day library they're building there, which sounds awesome. Should the story have not at all like kind of touched on that?
That's actually a great point. I'd never even thought of that. And it would be interesting to at least have them go to Cairo.
Agreed.
Let's visit Cairo and see what we can find. And maybe we'll investigate there, or there'll be some, breadcrumb there that we can find. But that's a great point. Never even thought of that.
While I total up my scores, Brandon, why don't you have now 5 free points to give to anything you would like. I already took mine. Mine is Gary, so I'm done. But you guys have to give yours. So what's your free space? And I'll total this up.
So I think my free space is gonna go to the buy-in factor, because as I'm reading this, I keep thinking, how in the heck is Steve Barry going to end up proving this? Or how are they in the book? When I say prove it, how's he going to prove it in the world of the story, right?
Sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because, he really had me. He did. I kept thinking like this, and it makes you that what if piece to history. I know we talked about that before. It's just the what if. Like, what if this conversation between St. Augustine and St. Jerome actually did happen?
Yeah.
What if, a translation is wrong, and this spot that we've been saying, this Old Testament spot, we've been saying for centuries is it? Really isn't. It's just that what if factor is just really well done with this book, because, it's historical faction, like you mentioned, and it's just so evident and it's so well done with this that I have to give my free space to that, because I was bought in the whole time.
I'm with you. Yeah. Can't steal your free space, but if I could, I would. It'd be the quest, the buy into the quest, and the history of it checking out, and the history combining with the Saudis demolishing this town so no archaeological evidence could be found, and what would happen if we find out the Holy Land is not actually the Holy Land. And yeah, amazing stuff. But since I got to change it up, and Chris, you took Gary, I'm going to wrap in Henrik with that. I feel like that'd be another kind of stolen free space, because this book really could be called The Adventures of Henrik and Gary.
I'd read that.
Exactly. The two of them going off and doing what they're doing together. He's like the mentor, the father figure, while his father's saving the day, the wise old man. So I feel like I can't do that either, because you guys kind of covered that. So I think, and Brendan, you mentioned it earlier, and it jogged my memory, this idea of the Guardians, the fact that this knowledge can be preserved throughout time by a secret society of which many of our heroes from history, the big men of history, have been involved in and had this esoteric knowledge, or this access to knowledge that's quite literally hidden out in the middle of the desert, protected by the Guardians through the years. I love when history, plays out on that grand scale, when there's something about history that connects all the threads, all the time periods, all the people, all the players, and they all had this something in common that made them influence history and be the thread throughout history that brings us to where we are today. So the idea of the Guardians, you get that knock on the door inviting you into their temple of knowledge, and you have to go on the quest and complete the quest to get in. Really cool backdrop for the story. So I think the Guardians are going to be my big winner.
All right. That gives us our scorecard. So we have a grand total of, Brandon, you are 41.5 out of 50. Tied with me, 41.5. Coming right behind us, Mike with a 40.5. So
Okay.
we all like this book, pretty closely. And for just as a context, me and Mike gave a Templar Legacy a 44.5 and a 45. So, it's close, but I think, I don't know, I like each of them differently. So it's kind of hard to compare.
Yeah, I agree.
We kind of talked our way through that, but yeah.
I think I read Templar Legacy, a few years ago, and I think had I read them more closely together, I might feel a little bit differently.
Sure.
And your guys' your episode on the Templar Legacy is what inspired me to go grab, Alexandria Link. I was like, I got to get back into reading Steve Berry.
Yeah.
Like there's just a way you guys talked about the historical aspect of things, and there were things that I had forgotten had happened. I was like, I need to get back into this.
I love that. That's almost what we intend to do. Is we just want to be like that after show, like we finish a book, we're going to have that after show, bro out about it. And people who either read it recently or have read this book long ago can listen in to jog their memory and kind of reignite that fire. And it's funny because that's what your post and your review did for me, which was we read the Templar Legacy after years of begging Chris to pick up a Steve Berry book. We finally got there. And we both said we want to do more, but we've been so busy and our reading schedule is jam-packed. I don't know when we would have gotten to this one. But realistically, I don't think we would have scheduled it in 2025, just knowing how much we have coming down the pike.
Yeah.
And so your review, seeing you glowing review, check them out. We'll let you at the very end here, Brandon, plug your socials one more time. I know you said it earlier, where people can find you. Because when I read your glowing review of Alexandria Link, I was so fired up. I was like, Chris, we're putting it on the schedule this summer. Like, do it right now, because I was so pumped to get into it. So thank you for that as well. Tell the people, where can they find you?
So I'm on X at Saturday. I'm Saturday Dad on X at dad_Saturday. And then I also have a weekly newsletter that I publish. It's free to sign up. It's called Saturday Dad Reads. And basically what you get with that is my weekly, I do a book a week, do a quick summary of the book, do a review. I also add in there little, I call them Dad's knowledge bombs. I'll take something that's inside the book and I'll expand upon it. So, for example, my knowledge bomb for when I did the Alexandria link was about the Library of Alexandria itself. And I liken those to things that if you're the dad at the table, Christmas dinner, Thanksgiving dinner, Sunday dinner, what have you, and you need to drop a little knowledge on the people at the table, that's the kind of stuff you want to have in your back pocket. And then I always end the newsletter with either some book recs, what I'm reading now, or a dad rant, some takes on being a dad of 4 and an old man yelling in a cloud sometimes.
Nice. I'm a dad of 4 as well, so.
Oh, right on. Okay.
3 dads talking about books.
Exactly.
Yeah, hey,
here's a new pod.
That was what that was one of the things that I had intended to do from the start. I got the idea from my brother. Was like, hey man, why don't you read constantly? There's a niche out there for dads to talk about books. Why don't you start posting, instead of like trolling the Pittsburgh sports media? Why don't you use your social media handle to talk about books? And I started doing it about 2 years ago with a review every week, and here we are now. talking books with you guys.
Awesome.
Yeah, that's good stuff.
I just subscribed to your newsletter. I'm
Nice.
excited.
There we go.
I'm excited to you have a new reader, a new reader in me.
Right.
This was great. Thank you for coming on. And
Yeah.
we got it. Maybe when we read the Venetian Link, that's
Venetian
the next
Betrayal.
one.
Venetian Betrayal. Yeah.
Maybe we'll have you back. Or if you come up with any other books that you review that you think are just screaming, thriller pod, right in our wheelhouse, spy, espionage, military stuff, recommend away.
I got to give you guys all the credit in the world for turning me on to Daniel Silva. Your episode on the Kill Artist was top notch.
I know we got to get back to him too.
Favorite books. I'm reading The English Assassin right now, which is book 2. And I don't know if you guys have done anything with Don Bentley. I'm currently reading the Matt Drake, first in the Matt Drake series, the Without Distinction. So
we did all of them. So I think if you find those, I think you'll enjoy it as you go through. And his new Mitch Rapp books in the Vince Flynn series we've covered. So
yep,
I love that.
Review this week is a Mitch Rapp. I'll give you that. Kill Shot, the second book in the series.
All right.
Ooh,
yeah.
Okay.
And we're going to get the follow-up to that book next month. Chris and I actually just got early copies to Denied Access, which is the third book after American Assassin, Kill Shot, and now the third Mitch Rapp book in that trilogy.
Beautiful. All right.
Nice. Well, we're going to look out for that one. I'm very curious what your knowledge bomb will be for Kill Shot. A couple ways you can go with that. But
yep, absolutely.
You have the knowledge bombs. We got the limericks. So I don't know if you know this about the pod, but every time we review a book, I end with a limerick. So before you close us out, Chris, I got to say, there once was a secret to find that could change all of humankind. With cotton on track, the past's fighting back, and the truth blows conspiracies' minds.
Oh, that's a good one, Mike.
Well done.
It's a good one. Good job there.
It's such a good one. One might say it takes AI to write that limerick.
No way.
I'm sorry, boys. I let you down. I didn't have one prepared.
That's a Chat GPT one.
And I don't do that's the first time I've done it on the pod. So I had to cop out just because I'm having such a good time. I didn't want to be distracted writing a limerick. So I won't do it again, Chris. I apologize.
Normally he makes me sit here for at least like 20 minutes while he's like, wait, let me do a limerick. And I'm just watching him while I'm,
we say 8:45 pod. We click record at 9:15 because I'm trying to write a limerick. Yeah. I didn't want to do that to you though, Brendan. So I was like, let me just use some AI here.
All good.
All right. Well, thanks for coming on, man.
Yeah, absolutely, guys. Thank you for having me. This was an awesome opportunity and loved having the chance to talk books with you guys.
All right, let's do it again sometime.
Sounds good to me. All right, take it easy, guys.
All right. Well, thank you to Brandon for coming on. Again, we need to thank our patrons, our Deputy Director, Sherry F., and Brad E., our special agents, Adam, Mike, Ben, Daryl, George, Matt. Hold on, I'm getting cut off here. Matt, Don, and Chris. Please subscribe, rate, and review to all 3 seasons of No Limits. You can find us at thrillerpod.com or on Twitter and Instagram at Thriller Podcast. And as always, just like cotton, be cotton.